Today's interview is with Tamir. Tamir is in the Cleveland market, Cleveland, Ohio, and he gives us a little bit of an insight into that market and what's going on there and why, in his opinion, it's a pretty good market. He also talks about investing in multifamily. His first deal he did as a joint venture, a 57 unit, I believe it was, and some issues that he had going into that deal with financing and some problems that he had to fix before closing. He talks about how he's been able to go direct to seller through wholesalers to find these deals. Most people find deals through brokers, but he's been able to go through wholesalers and go direct to sellers. So really interesting story, some great nuggets, great information. So stick around for all of that. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Tamir. Hey Tal, how are you doing, man?
Doing great, Barry. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you on the show. It's going to be a fun conversation, no doubt about that. But before we dive into that, do you want to give us a little bit of introduction into yourself about who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, of course. So I was born and raised here in Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland's got a little bit of a bad rap over the years, but I think it's an amazing place. Maybe a little biased, but it's okay. Grandfather was actually a big real estate developer here. Built residential, multifamily, some commercial, medical, things like that. So I was kind of exposed to real estate from a pretty young age. We go to the job site once in a while and kind of, he was very successful. He is very successful. He's not doing much anymore, but they're just kind of holding everything. So I think that seed was kind of planted in me very early on that real estate's a great kind of place to be. So fast forward a little bit, graduated from Ohio State in economics, nothing to do with real estate, obviously. Bounced around a little bit, was actually in the medical marijuana industry for a couple of years in Colorado and Michigan. Realized that is not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Was kind of on a search for my passion, what I wanted to do. Everyone has like that period in their life. So kind of refound real estate, listened to podcasts, heard a guy named Grant Cardone talking in a podcast similar to this, talking about multifamily and multiplying your money and all these things. And a light bulb kind of went off in my head. And I was like, that's it. That's what I need to do. So from there, I was just kind of practicing underwriting deals, going through things, and moved back to Cleveland in the end of 2017. Couldn't get a job with I wanted to work with like a multifamily company, like a asset management company or something like that, but I had no experience in that field. So I had my degree, but not any experience in specifically multifamily real estate. So I got my real estate license, joined a company, it's actually a property management / brokerage, where I helped the owner's husband do acquisition or disposition on smaller properties. So singles, duplexes, things like that. Learned a lot. It wasn't really what I was wanting or planning to do. At that time, didn't have any multifamily real estate, it was kind of like looking at the sidelines. I was like, okay, well, I want to buy multifamily. It's like an end goal, right? So make money, then invest in multifamily. And then I was like, okay, well, let's start looking. Then it's like, this was 3, maybe 4 years ago. So I was like, okay, we're at the top of the market. I'll wait for the market to go down and then I'll jump into the game. 1 year passed, 2 years passed. Then I'm like, okay, it's, how much longer is this going to go? I don't want to sit on the sideline anymore. So, read all the books, podcasts, did the research, everything that you can kind of find online or from podcasts like this that you do, Barry. And then I figured the last thing was I just got to learn from experience. So about 1.5 years ago, started investing in multifamily properties. We parted on a 57 unit down in Atlanta. And now we just closed a 24 unit it was about 3 weeks ago, so earlier this month. So we have about 103 units, I believe, right now. So, we have another 115 under contract here just in the Cleveland market. So we put our pen to the paper, we really worked very hard. We didn't close the deal since last March. And now we have all this traction all of a sudden. So, it's a lot of behind the scenes work, and now things are really catching. And we're doing very well, thankfully.
Yeah, you said something very interesting there. We said a lot of interesting stuff actually, but I kind of did the same thing, and I was guilty of the same thing. I'm sitting on the sidelines, right, waiting. Right, you listen to sort of certain economists, and you sort of research, and you think, okay, we've been, this extension has been going on for this, this bull market essentially has been going on for a while right now. Something has to give, and okay, I can't wait to to get all the bargains that's going to come up. And I was like you, I waited sort of a while, a few years maybe, just to kind of really get my feet wet in multifamily. And obviously, looking back, that was a big mistake of mine. What do you think it was? That was it just a matter of time that you just got impatient before waiting, or was there something else that made you think, okay, hey, I think there was some kind of downturn going to happen, but now at this point I just need to get involved. What was there something that got you over that hump?
Yeah, I think a big thing, I joined a mastermind group. I was surrounding myself with other people that were like-minded. It wasn't even a real estate group, but I got connected with a few people in that mastermind that were actually multifamily investors. So I told them, my goal this year is to buy one 16-unit building or whatever it is. So I talked to a few guys, and like, no, forget 16, let's get you into 100 units this year. Or what I was like, okay, that's like the power of being in a mastermind group. And I was thinking small because for the 16 unit, that would have been me and my fiance. We'll go take down one building by ourselves, and that would be it, right? We don't have all this capital sit on the sideline. And then the 100 unit made me think differently. Okay, can we syndicate these? Can we do a joint venture with other people that we know that also have capital? So that's what we're doing right now. We're doing syndications and joint ventures, depending on the deal and kind of where our potential partners are sitting with capital. But I think that was the biggest thing, right? I mean, yeah, the market was going up, like compared to where it is now. I wish I was buying 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But what is a learning experience? The big thing for me, Barry, was the fear, right? Am I going to lose our money, our savings? Then we partner with other people. Am I going to lose their money? What's going to happen? It's like at the end of the day, it's a very simple business. As I'm sure you know, it's not rocket science. You don't need to be a genius to figure this out, but it's just the getting over that fear effect and making that first investment.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you did a smart move, right? You surround yourself with people doing it, right? People that are experienced, people that are smarter than you, and are more, have had more success. So it's easy then to dive in, right? Because you see them doing it, you see the success that they've had, and when you see someone that has that experience levels and has that success, it's easier to go after it, I think, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like when you listen on a podcast, right? Like it's different. You listen to Grant Cardone talk or this guy or that guy, but when you're talking to a normal person, they're all normal people, but like someone that you see on the street or that you meet in one of these groups, like, wow, well, he's doing it. Why can't I do it? He's not, he's smart or whatever, because there's something special or crazy about it. Everyone underwrites the deals the same way. You find the deal, you put the tenants, it's very rinse and repeat. So it's like why I did economics, because it came very naturally to me. And that's why I think I'm doing the multifamily, came very, very naturally. And I know it's a vehicle to really get me, to where I want to go at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's cool. You said you're in Cleveland and you invest, even though your first deal was in another market. Can you give us a little bit of an insight to people that don't know about the Cleveland market and what it's all about there?
Yeah, so Cleveland, it's really slow and steady. Over the years, doesn't have this kind of population growth or anything like that. Strong occupancy rate, in the market as a whole. There's a ton of product here. The market right now, it's like the rest of the country is super hot. People it's like a typical Midwest market. So a big metro, population here. You're having a lot of people come from New York, California, Denver, places like that, and buying up properties at a 6 cap or whatever it is, where a few years ago, your typical was a 9 cap or something like that. Because the cash flow here is just absolutely amazing. You can go to a different market and, get a little bit more rent. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at B and C class properties, the rents are only going to vary so much. And when you come to Cleveland, it's like, yeah, you don't have all those metrics, but you're going to have 95% occupancy. You're going to get X amount of dollars per rent. And, just for us, it makes a lot of sense because, like I said, we're doing JVs or syndications. We want to get our investors X amount percentage on their investment. And the numbers, it's a numbers game. If the numbers don't make sense, we can't do it. So we can't look at markets like Austin and Denver, California, things like that. The numbers just don't shake out.
Yeah. And, that's a good thing about a lot of these Midwest towns, right? I invest in Cincinnati or just out of Cincinnati. You compare that to trying to buy in Las Vegas, where I'm based, right? It doesn't compare at all, right? No, there might be more appreciation, and I'm sure there is here, but, that's more on the speculation side, right? And cash flow is kind of really what I think a lot of people look for. You mentioned that your first deal was 57 units, right? How did you, and I think you said you had some partners involved in that. How did that deal go? How did you get involved? How did that come about? What was your role in that deal?
So it's kind of interesting, right? The 57 unit, this is before we bought anything, obviously. And, doing a lot of networking, talking to people we know. A friend of mine brought the deal to me. He's like, hey, we got this deal under contract. Want to invest as a passive investor, as like an LP, like syndication. I'm like, you know what? It's not really what we want to do. We want to be more on the active side, build the track record, which is almost the biggest thing for us. For when we go out and get our own financing, it helps to be an LP. But if you really want to, it helps more for your track record purposes to be an actual operator in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But GP or a KP, that's really where we want it to be. So fast forward a couple weeks, he comes back and say, hey, Tal, the deal is back. Now we're doing like a joint venture partnership. I said, okay, now I'm interested. It makes more sense. So we jumped in on that one for a small piece. There's someone down in Atlanta taking care of all the day-to-day, property management, everything like that. So that's more passive for us. The more active one is the 22 unit we closed after that, where we really did everything A to Z, source the deal, project management, negotiate with the seller, financing, the whole 9 yards. So that's more of our first A to Z, on top of it deal.
Well, yeah, let's dive into that one then. The 20, how did you guys find that 22 unit?
So a wholesaler actually brought it to our attention, and we went and toured the property. The guy was asking like $800,000 at the time. Plus the wholesaler wanted, I think 30 or 10 to 50,000. I can't even remember how much it was. So we put under contract. We have our team put in place. We're kind of going through the process, doing our due diligence. After seeing everything, we're like, hey, Mr. Seller, we can't pay you 800. We need to be at 700 to make for this deal to work for us. He said, hey, I get it. I appreciate you guys, but, I can't do it, So we actually exited the deal. We were on amazing terms. Older guy and his wife. We went to his house, schmoozed with him, and it's like really, really good people. We just kept and built that rapport over time. So we check in every few months. David, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. So I think it was like 6 or 8 months later, the seller calls me up and he says, hey, Tal, something unfortunate happened, and we need to liquidate this property. Are you still interested in buying? I said 100%, but it needs to be, at the number we kind of discussed before. He's like, let me think about it. Next day, he's like, okay, cool, let's do it. So we went in, did our due diligence. We did joint venture on this one. So we all put a little capital, a little sweat equity into the deal. Even the sweat equity kind of all fell onto me, which I'm more than happy with because I got more experience that way. So went and negotiated financing. The lender actually was through a mortgage broker, and it was a bank out of New York. And it was a terrible experience, actually. Something that they don't tell you about when you're doing these courses and the whole thing. So we're the day before closing, and the lender's legal reaches out to me and my attorney and says, hey guys, here's a laundry list of items that we need for closing tomorrow. And we're like, and this is like typical lender's legal says, hey, we need the operating agreements, we need the searches, blah, blah, blah. They usually will give you a couple, 2-3 weeks ahead of time, which in that case, it's no issue. And the seller already pushed back his balloon payment for his loan, and it was due like the next Wednesday or Tuesday. So like, we need to get this done. And so some of the things he asked for were like minimum 48-hour searches for the title company. So we got him everything he wanted, worked all weekend long, late nights. Our attorney got into it with their attorney. But we ended up getting done. It was just a very stressful few days. And it's funny, we were on the day of closing waiting for like the funds to come in from the lender. We have a good relationship with the title company where we're using Fidelity Title. And the woman's there refreshed, like their cutoff is like 3:00 or something. So they're like refresh, 2:59. She refreshes, the money came in and she closed it out. I'm like, that was insane. So the deal right now is going great. 22 units value add. Uh, we're putting about $7,000 into each unit, taking rents. The one beds were around 600, the two beds were around 700. We anticipated bumping them about $75 in the beginning, but now we're getting $750 for the ones and $850 for the twos.
Wow.
So we're exceeding our projections. There were some things that happened along the way we weren't anticipating. Like, for example, the contractor we started with, I'm sure everyone hears this, he gave us X price. He did a few units like that, but it was a nightmare, like babysitting grown men. And we had to part ways. And our new contractor is a great guy, does good work, reasonably priced, but it's a little bit more. So we need to pull a couple grand for each unit because we actually got bridge financing on this. 100% of the rehab was it was like 80% loan to cost, I believe. So we have like that money sitting aside. We have to pull $3,000 extra dollars for each unit in order to turn those. It is what it is. So we're not, making a ton of money this first year, but this next year we're going to refinance probably the next 6 months. We're going to crush it. And now we're just turning and burning these units. We've probably been through about half the building at this point.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there. Going back to the initial conversation you had with the seller, right? And you guys got it at 800, and then you realized you needed to be at 700. What were the issues there? What were the issues that made you guys need to reduce the price 100,000?
Yeah, so we were looking at his tax returns, the money the property was actually bringing in, because like what we got was a P&L from the wholesaler. And I mean, it's kind of from the seller too. They put it together, between the two of them. And there were quite a few items on there that, after digging through all of his service contracts, landscaping, repairs and maintenance, payroll, management, all those other items, it's like insurance, and this is like when we were kind of newer in the game, right? So we weren't making all of these assumptions. Okay, yeah, this is what he's doing. And then we got into it. We're looking at his actual bottom line. And we're like, the lender won't even finance this. Like, this deal won't work for us. So it's a hard conversation to have. You know what I mean? And the last thing we want to do as owners and operators is come back to an owner and retrade for no reason. We want to have a real substance to come back and say, hey, we need $10,000 off the deal, whatever that looks like, because we pride ourselves in being transparent and doing what we say we're going to do. So if we say we're going to buy for $1 million, we're going to buy for $1 million. If we go in and we find the foundation falling apart, we'll tell you, hey, it's going to cost us $50,000 to fix, so we're going to ask for $50,000. We're going to ask for 100 or 200. We want to be fair and create a win-win scenario for everybody.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned something that was really interesting. Obviously, you found it through wholesale. Were you actively looking through wholesalers? Because wholesalers mainly focus on single-family homes, right? I'm sure it's a strategy I've tried, but it doesn't really, it's very tough. There's tons of different wholesalers, and mainly they have, they might have a duplex or triplex or quad, but they don't, very rarely do they find these bigger deals. Was that something you guys were actively doing, or did you just have a connection with a wholesaler and they knew that what you were looking for?
So you're 100% right. So I have like a real estate company also that people buy and sell called Tamir Investing, smaller stuff. So in that business, we deal with a lot of wholesalers because, like you said, it's singles, doubles, maybe some small multis. But this wholesaler specifically, it was an older guy, he's probably 75, like an old mafia man kind of, knew everyone in the city. So knew all these, owners and stuff that were older, like his generation. And he was bringing us a ton of deals actually. And after, I think it was like about a year ago, he passed away just randomly. So he was a very random case that kind of really knew the lay of the land and what was going on, but definitely was not actively on our radar. But I'll tell wholesalers now, hey, if you find a bigger apartment building, let us know. For example, the 24 unit we just closed a few weeks ago, that was from a wholesaler too. So, I mean, I think the key is letting everybody know who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. Because once in a while, they'll call on a duplex, say, actually, I want to sell my 50-unit building. Do you have anyone for that? They can't email blast that out, but they say, hey, Tal, I got this building. You want to take a look at it? So just kind of letting everybody know what we're doing.
Yeah, and then you guys got to talk to the seller directly. Was there it's a negotiation with a wholesaler there, because wasn't the wholesaler maybe scared that you might cut him out the picture, or because that's always the challenging part sometimes, to let the wholesaler know that, hey, you're still going to get your cut, but I need to talk to the seller directly so that we can get in those negotiations, so we can iron things out a lot better.
Right. It was very interesting. Like, for example, the 24 unit that we just closed, they had X amount of dollar for a wholesale fee. And then we did our inspection, walked through all the units. We found some things there that needed to be addressed that we didn't know about. We didn't see in the movies, anything like that, serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to negotiate with the seller. He wouldn't give up a dollar, not a single dollar. Well, we're like, we like the deal. We want to do the deal. So the wholesaler cut their fee a little bit, but what we did is have them get paid at closing. So it comes directly from our funds. We have a assignment. We sign the assignment agreement or whatever that they have that says, we're going to get paid $60,000 or $20,000, whatever that number is, and that just goes directly to them at closing. So that's what I like to tell people. Like I said, we want everyone to win. We want you to bring us another deal after this. So it's always great to talk directly to the seller, because you kind of, he said, she said, that's kind of eliminated here from the horse's mouth. But yeah, I mean, it's building the trust too with the wholesalers, these other people, because a lot of them have gotten taken advantage of, and it's gone behind their backs or whatever that looks like. So
yeah. And then back to the point about the financing with the bank. Was there anything to do with the broker, or was it just the bank? What was there anything that you guys could have done differently? What did you learn from that experience? Anything?
I learned, first of all about lenders legal, right? That to kind of, if we don't hear anything, reach out to them and say, hey, we're supposed to close in 2 weeks. Let's get that conversation started. What searches do you need? How do you want the insurance to look? What operating agreements do you need? They're outstanding. So to kind of, and it wasn't even the mortgage brokers directly from the lender on there, and they should totally drop the ball. So I think it's just taught me to prepare, like for the deals we're doing now, we have all the operating agreements in a folder. We know what they want the investor list. So everything is kind of ready to go, just kind of give to them on a silver platter, which is making things just go much smoother from here on out. So it was a great learning experience at the end of the day, and we got it done. I think it was like a day or maybe 2 days before COVID hit the US last year.
So terrible timing then.
It was like good at the same time, because we saw, like, if it would have been a week later, they probably wouldn't have funded the deal.
Wow.
So we've done really well with it. Collections have been absolutely amazing, and so it was an interesting time for sure.
Yeah. And those are the lessons, though, you'd rather not learn, but you learn the most from, right? Because you pay attention to stuff like that, right? If it's not a painful lesson, you might not pay attention to so much. And like you said, now going forward, you kind of understand what they need. And I think with lenders as well, right? It's just about communication, right? Constant communication. What do you guys need? Where are we in the process? What's next? Just keep asking questions, right? Because if you just kind of let it be and assume that they know what's going to happen next, or that they taking charge in everything, you might end up in a situation like that, right? Because lenders, if it doesn't get funded, what does it really? They want to make the loan and they want to make the money, right? But if it doesn't get funded, they don't lose their AMD, they don't lose their reputation, they don't, they haven't got that much to lose. So I think it's important to realize that and not have sorry for any lenders listening, but not too much faith in them, right? It's good to have that communication with them and just keep on top of everything.
Yeah, no, you hit on the head, Barry. It's, I'm glad it happened on a 20 unit, not a 200 unit.
Right. Yeah, that would have been a lot rougher. Yeah, for sure. So the next deal, was that a similar type deal, sort of a value add deal? I know you said you got it through a wholesaler. Was it a similar kind of seller? What was the negotiations like on that one?
Yeah, so similar deal. These are actually townhouse style units, much better location, probably like a B+ neighborhood. The first one, the 22, was like a C-class neighborhood. So better location, close to shopping, got Home Depot next door, restaurants, all these cool things. Seller, mom and pop, is like 82 or 83, so older guy, had the property for 30 years, same story as the 22 unit. He was kind of, coasting by, wasn't really updating units, like a little maybe vinyl in the kitchen or a little something here, a little something there, but nothing major like the renovations we're doing now. some of the tenants poke their head in and they're like, oh, like jaw hit the floor, like, well, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's what we want to have, is that wow effect. So, because the goal for us is to turn all of these units as fast as possible and then refinance our and our investors' capital out. So in order to do that, the best way to do it is have renovate 2 units, then take the tenants, like market out to the other 22 tenants that are there and say, hey, these are the brand new units. This is what we did. This is the new rent if you want to move next door into this unit right here. So it's that's another thing a lot of people don't talk about, to kind of, because once they move in, then the next one, you can go turn that one. And then they move in that one, then the next one. So it's like, that's what we're doing in Maple Heights now. It took a while for it to catch on, but the more the tenants or residents see what's going on, they're like, I could live here for another $200 a month. Like, for some people, they know they're getting a steal, right? They've been there 5-10 years. They know it's below market. It's fine, but it's like, you can get this for a couple hundred dollars more a month. A lot of people are like, yeah, sign me up. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, tenants know what the market can bear, right? What rents are. You'd be surprised how much they know. They know how much, what other, what it would cost to move somewhere else. They know what market rent is to some degree, right? They know way more than you maybe suspected, because it's what they're paying, right? And they want to know what they're paying. So it's surprising what they know. And if you can get tenants that are already in the property, as long as you're obviously going to screen them, right? You're not just going to move them over without necessarily knowing that they're a good tenant. But if you can get that lowers your headache a lot, right? Because you already have a tenant who loves the area, who likes where they're living. If you can just, for a few $100 extra a month, give them a much better place, a nicer place to live, that's a win-win for everyone.
100%. We're all about the win-win, Barry. At the end of the day, it's like win-win-win. We want to win. We want the seller to win. We want the tenants to win. Like, we want to create a community where these people can call it home. Yeah, they might not own it. We want the pride of ownership to be there, and that's how we feel, with all of our assets. It's like a big thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What's next for you guys?
So we have a few projects right now under contract. One really cool. It's a 14 unit so the Cleveland Clinic is a big, how do you want to call it? One of the major hospitals, like branches in the world. They have them all across the planet. And their main campus is here in Cleveland. So Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital, 2 major, healthcare providers here. And we're buying a 14 unit, which is usually smaller than what we look at, but it's a huge value add. It's walking distance to the Cleveland Clinic main campus. So the location is insane. Buying it for 700, is it 800, excuse me. And we're putting about 1.4 million into it in renovations.
Wow.
So it's like a full shebang, inside, outside. It's not down to the studs, but it's brand new roofs, exterior, interior, the full shebang. So, and we're going to do an Airbnb style apartment building. Like, it works okay as long-term, but as an Airbnb short-term rental, we have a couple of partners that do that. You knock it out of the park. So we're super excited about that. We're just kind of wrapping up the process, probably the next 2-3 weeks. And we'll close that one out. It's about 6-month construction period. Excuse me. And then we have a 42 unit, same, mom and pop, value add, B minus neighborhood, I'd say. That's closing the end of April. And then we just put under contract a 48 unit in, it's called Elyria. So it's a little bit outside of Cleveland, probably a half hour from the west side of Cleveland, townhouse style. This is really cool. It's a nice little nugget for everybody. So these are townhouse style. You have your own furnace and hot water tank in each unit. So we're going in, we walk through a few of the units, and I'm like popping my head in the closet, looking around at like the hot water tank and whatnot. And I said, Mr. Seller, is that a water meter right there? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, do all of them have water? He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure each unit has its own water meter. But he's like, I bet I have a main meter at the street where I just pay for everyone's water. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I didn't say this to him, but I'm just like, ding, ding, ding. That's like finding in gold. You're talking about, $35,000 a year in water sewer expense that can be billed back to the tenants directly. So we underwrote the deal just with like a little rubs, like a $25 water fee, which he's doing like 10 or 15 right now. It's in line with the market. But during due diligence, we're going to bring out a sub-metering company and see what it's going to take to do this. If we can do it, and that can really, take it to the next level as far. It might be the best deal that we see this year. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, well, that's a game changer in itself. If they're paying for it's one thing to bill it back to some extent, but when tenants know that you're paying for it, even if they're paying a flat fee, they're still going to leave the water running, leave the windows open in the winter, all that stuff, right? But if you're able to have it sub-metered and they're paying for it, well, it just takes it completely off your hands, and that can be huge. So that's awesome. That's funny that he was like, yeah, well, I just pay for it myself. That sounds like a very, very mom and pop owner type thing.
Yeah, I'm scratching my head like, what are you talking about? Like, it looked like a very ancient water meter that maybe before his time, but still, like, you got to spend $25,000-$30,000 to put new meters. I'm like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool, man. Well, this has been really interesting. I appreciate you taking the time. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I'd like to incorporate some wrestling-related real estate questions. And the first question is, what would your wrestling name be?
You told me this earlier, and I've been brewing in the back of my mind. Because like you said, I'm a wrestling fan, too. I used to watch a lot of it back in the day. That is a tough one. I feel like I wanted it to be something with multifamily, right?
Well, you have limitless behind you, so I was thinking Mr. Limitless or something like that.
Mr. Limitless. There you go. There.
Mr. Limitless. So every wrestler, as you know, has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
I think my special move is getting the deal done, right? So there's many moving parts when it comes to dealing with financing, title companies, kind of putting all of these 500 puzzle pieces together to get to the actual closing table and getting the deal done. I really am a big believer in whatever it takes. So I think that's my special move if I had to put it on.
Yeah, as proof with that first deal, right, when you had to get it done in a short amount of time there. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career?
Biggest body slam. Oh, I love these questions. How you do that?
Thank you.
The biggest body slam would probably be. This was interesting. So for the last deal that we just did, the 24 unit, we did a syndication. So we raised about $700,000, and we were like a month into raising money. We had a little over, I would say you could call it a little over half raised already. We met with, you can call it one of my partner's family friends. And, the guy does very well for himself. And he's like, we gave him the pitch, showed him everything that's going on. And he said, okay, how much more do you need to raise? We said 375. Okay, perfect. I'm in for the balance. Like, okay, awesome. So at this point, we stopped raising completely. So, okay, fully funded, no issues. So it's like a month later. And we're supposed to close like a couple weeks after this. He calls us up. He said, oh, my CFO said this, said that. I'm out for the whole 375. I'm like, you're out? Like, what are you talking about? You're out. Like, nothing changed. So we went and met with him, and there was some miscommunication between her and him that he'd only get paid on the refi and the sale. And we're like, no, the PPM documents need to tell you everything that could go wrong, like the private placement memorandum, like for a syndication for SEC purposes. So she took that as, it was, but it really is not. Like, no, this is exactly what you get. You get quarterly distributions, the whole thing. Okay, let me think about it. He said, I'm out. So we get to scramble for the last couple of weeks to bring the rest of that capital to the table. And it was our first syndication raising money. So people are already kind of on the fence, oh, maybe I'll put 25, let me know how this one goes. Maybe I'll do the next one. And a lot of it is timing. So we got it done. It was stressful, but we learned our lesson on that front too. Not to put all your eggs in one basket, have some backup players in place, and let me learn.
And you got it done, right? That superpower again, that special move, right? Got it done. Yeah. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
I think it goes back to our earlier conversation, Barry, where I was waiting. And then I joined a mastermind group, surrounded myself with other people that are doing what I wanted to do, saw that it's possible and capable. You just got to make the leap of faith. You have to, I don't know what it was. I think it was a big thing was a mastermind group. But I think one day I just woke up, I'm like, I'm not going to let this fear hold me back anymore. I was doing a lot of personal development and things like that. I knew it was the fear of losing the money. Then I'm like, this is very simple. You're not reinventing the wheel. Everything is how it's supposed to be. Follow this blueprint and you're going to be fine. So I think that's what it was. Woke up one day, I was like, that's it. Let's fucking do it. Excuse my French, but like, let's just make it happen.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, man, this has been an awesome conversation. Really enjoyed everything that you've done, and obviously there's a lot more to come from you as well. I think we'll have to have you back on in the future when you're at 10,000 units or whatever you're at that point, right? But before we go, if anyone's interested in what you're doing or they want to reach out and get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm on Facebook pretty active. So it's Tal N Tamir. My email, feel free to email me any questions or comments, tal at ltcapitalgroup.com. And then our website, which we just revamped, I believe it is investprospera.com. Will you hold on so I can double check? It's either Invest Prospera or Invest with Prospera. So it's investprospera.com. Sorry. We just reached LT Capital Group, so to Invest Prospera. So that's where you can find me. Barry, this was an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you having me on, and would love to come back once we hit 10,000 in a few years.
Next year we have 10,000. No, it's been fun, man. Thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. And an awesome rest of your day out there in Cleveland.
Thank you, Barry. It was a pleasure.